Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. My name is Chaim Ben Pesach. Now they're blaming the Jews for the murder of Charlie Kirk. You've got a gay leftist who murders him and who's caught red-handed with his transgender boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever they call it. And the Jews are being blamed and the Mossad is being blamed, and millions of Americans believe this. They blame the Jews for everything. We're going to get into the story and the significance of this, but first let's start off by saying that this program is dedicated to Refuah Shlema, complete recovery for Shlomo ben Sarah, Ruth bat Sarah, Dorit bat Sarah, Ruven ben Shoshana, and Ashedina bat Violet, and to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls for Sharon Mitman, Malka bat Meir, Allegra bat Shlomo, Daniel Nankin, Victor Hazdai, Pesach Ze'ev ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Ruven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Rab Meir Kahana, Rab Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi, Bat Liba, Yosef Ben Meir, Robert Mittman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, Yair Levine, Rachel D., and David Ben Avraham. Well, after the murder of Charlie Kirk, even though his assassin was caught red-handed, his assassin's name is Tyler Robinson, who was raised in a Mormon home in Utah, and who is a bitter, angry, hateful leftist with a transgender roommate, and he's a gay leftist who's having relations with a transgender, and he's the one who gunned down Charlie Kirk. But you've got an endless parade of podcasters and other vicious anti-Semites in other arenas who are right away blaming the Jews for it, right away blaming the Mossad. And they take this page out of the Nazi playbook. This is what the Nazis did. Hitler and the Nazis, Yimach Shmam v'Zechram Shem Rashem Yerkav, may their name and memory be obliterated, may the name of the wicked rot, which is the blessing we say for all anti-Semites. Hitler and the Nazis blamed the Jews for everything, and in fact, they even had huge banners at their mass rallies in Berlin and in other German cities. And on the banner it said, "The Jews are responsible for all of our problems." The Jews are responsible for all of our problems. And now you have Americans who are allowed to put this on YouTube and Google and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. They're allowed to preach and peddle this vicious Nazi-style Jew hatred. They're saying the Mossad assassinated Charlie Kirk. Just absurdities beyond. I'm not going to get into proving that that's not true. If anybody believes that's true, don't watch this video. I don't want you to be part of my audience. If you even think there's a possibility that that's true, I wouldn't want people that stupid and that evil to be part of my audience. So I'm not going to try to prove that that's ridiculous. These are the same people, by the way, when there are hurricanes and tornadoes and big fires in the West, they claim the Mossad did that too. The Mossad, by the way, being the Israeli CIA. And there's no question the Mossad is the best espionage agency in the world, by far. Nobody even comes close. They're the most talented, brilliant, and brave espionage agents in the world. And what they carried out in Iran and what they carry out against Israel's enemies is absolutely breathtaking and incredible. But now these Jew-hating Nazis blame the Mossad for every single thing that occurs. Everything that occurs on the face of the earth that they don't like, they blame the Jews for. Again, following the Hitlerian slogan of the Holocaust, the Jews are responsible for all of our problems. God will give you the worst type of punishment. If not in this world, then in the next. It says, I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. You will be cursed beyond belief. And your punishment will be, you know what your punishment will be in the next world? All the terrible things that you tried to do to the Jews, and all the consequences of what you tried to peddle because you know your consequences can lead to another Holocaust. You want to incite the world against little Israel, so the whole world gangs up on little Israel, so little Israel will be overrun by the Arab Muslim Nazis in the Middle East. If Israel's overrun by the Arab Muslim Nazis in the Middle East, there'll be another Holocaust. That's what you want. And you'll be blamed for all of it on Yom Hadin, on the Day of Judgment, because that's what you wanted for the Jews. What you wanted for the Jews will be on your head 7 times over. And, we see this even with 9/11. Israel's enemies, Muslim Nazi terrorists from Saudi Arabia and Egypt, bring down the Twin Towers on 9/11 and murder 3,000 Americans. So these are Israel's worst enemies. In fact, these same Muslim terrorists are the ones who murdered our beloved leader, Harab Mir Kahana, Zecher Tzedek V'Kadosh Livracha, Hashem Yikom Damo. The first act of Al-Qaeda was to assassinate our beloved leader, Rabbi Meir Kahana, because he was telling the truth to the world. That was the first thing they did. They wanted to get him out of the way first. So they assassinated him in New York in November 1990. And then they bombed the World Trade Center. They murdered 3,000 Americans. And when our worst enemies do these terrible things, the anti-Semites come out of the closet and from under the cracks in the sidewalk and from out of the sewers and blame the Jews for things that the enemies of the Jews do. And they claim that the planes that crash into the Twin Towers that never really happened, that's just all fake, and that the Mossad bombed the buildings and brought them down with the Mossad bombs. And by the way, if you think that this is just something that non-Jews are doing to Jews, you have Jewish anti-Semites that also promote this. Max Blumenthal. Max Blumenthal is a so-called journalist who writes occasionally for the New York Nazi Times and the LA Nazi Times. By the way, the New York Nazi Times was owned by a Jewish family, and they did everything they could to prevent Israel from coming into being. They did everything they could to enable Hitler to carry out the Holocaust. These are Jews, German, assimilated, self-hating, intermarried German Jews who hated their own people and hated their own heritage and wanted the Jews to be murdered in the Holocaust, did everything they could to prevent any action to rescue the Jews during the Holocaust, then did everything they could to prevent Israel from coming into being in 1948, were viciously anti-Zionist, and did everything they could ever since then to destroy Israel. And by the way, it doesn't help. The Arab Muslim Nazis still spray painted slogans on their apartment in Greenwich Village in New York, on the apartment of the editor of the New York Nazi Times. They still went after him just because he has some connection to Jews. He had some connection to Jews in his background or heritage, even though he himself is a Jewish anti-Semite. But they still went after him. Didn't help. Doesn't matter. They go after Jewish professors on college campuses and Jewish students who are anti-Israel, who are self-hating Jews, who are Jewish anti-Semites, who are on their side. They go after them too just because they're Jewish. Max Blumenthal, the so-called journalist, he now is spreading this Nazi-like lie that the Mossad carried out the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And his father, by the way, Max Blumenthal's father, just to show you how prominent some of these Jewish anti-Semites are, his father, Sidney Blumenthal, another self-hating Jew, worked for President Bill Clinton, was one of the biggest advisors and a leading figure in the Clinton administration. That's the type of people. These are the Clinton Jews, the Obama Jews. They were all the Jewish Democrats. These are Jewish anti-Semites. And now we have a question that we have to ask. What should we conclude from all this? We should conclude, Esav soneh leYaakov. This is what Chazal are the rabbinic sages. They told us that most of the nations of the world are going to hate the Jews. There are righteous Gentiles who do not hate the Jews, who genuinely support Israel. There are righteous Gentiles. But they are a minority, a distinct minority. Most of the nations of the world have hated the Jews and persecuted the Jews since the Jews came into being 4,000 years ago. They've hated the Jews ever since. The things that the Jews, the torture and pogroms and inquisitions and crusades and holocausts and murder and rape that the Jews suffered through, and torture and mass torture that the Jews suffered through at the hands of all these nations that now judge Israel. For thousands of years they did this to the Jews. They've always hated the Jews, and they still do. And so you've got now this legitimization of Nazi-like anti-Semitism. And again, the big social media sites don't take them down. Don't take down these. They're podcasters with millions of viewers who are peddling this Nazi style hatred. And the big social media sites don't take them down. The social media sites know that it's a lie to claim that the Mossad or the Jews killed Charlie Kirk. They know who killed Charlie Kirk. They know who was caught red-handed doing it. The guy who was caught red-handed is a gay leftist. Gay leftists hate Israel and hate the Jews. Okay? At demonstrations against Israel, you have the gay flag and the transgender flags and transgender symbols. Their organizations are anti-Israel. And the left is universally anti-Israel. All the leftists hate Israel. The whole Democrat Party is an anti-Semitic party that hates Israel. And they carry out an assassination, and the Jews whom they hate are blamed. How convenient. History is repeating itself. You foolish Jews that live in America and think that you're going to get by don't realize that we have only one homeland in Israel and that it can happen here. Yes, it can happen here. You foolish Jews, when will you wake up? When will you realize you are hated? You're envied and hated and despised. And even your fellow Jews, look at most American Jews. Look at the behavior of most American Jews. 78% voted for Barack Hussein Obama, who himself is a Muslim anti-Semite. They voted for Roosevelt, who enabled Hitler to carry out the Holocaust and Roosevelt could have stopped the Holocaust at any time. And they voted for Roosevelt enthusiastically, even though he was responsible for the murder of 6 million of their brothers and sisters in Europe. That's American Jews. And now there'll be more that they want to disassociate themselves with Israel now. They think that's going to help. It's not going to help them. They're still going to be hated and despised. No matter what they do, they'll be hated and despised. But the reality is that the world is against us. Again, there are exceptions. There are righteous Gentiles who support Israel and who will defend Israel and who believe in what it says in the Bible. I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that will curse thee. There are righteous Gentiles in the world, but they're the exception. They're not the rule. Israel must become independent and self-sufficient. Israel cannot rely on the United States. Israel's fake dependency on the United States, it's fake because Israel doesn't need the foreign aid and doesn't need America to send them weapons. Israel can produce her own weapons and her own technology brilliantly, amazingly. We've seen in the wars what they're capable of doing. Israel doesn't need this artificial connection with America, which enables the United States to constantly pressure Israel to do things that are suicidal. Israel must become fully independent. Israel must stop getting foreign aid. An end to all foreign aid. I'm against foreign aid to any country. The United States should end all foreign aid, but especially to Israel because it's bad for Israel. All these anti-Semites scream, stop foreign aid to Israel. All these anti-Semites are always screaming in the demonstrations, stop arms shipments to Israel. That's the best favor you could do for Israel. Then you're forcing Israel to become independent, which Israel has the brain power and the technical capability to do so. That's the best thing you could do for Israel. You're not helping a welfare recipient by giving them welfare payments. The way to help them is to force them to work. You're not helping a drug addict by giving them another fix. The best way to help them is to get them off of drugs. And Israel, like a drug addict, is waiting for their next fix from the United States when they don't need it. That's the lesson here. Am levadad yishkonu vagoyim. lo yitchashav. This is a nation that shall dwell alone and not be reckoned among the nations, it says in our Torah, in our holy Torah. When Israel is alone, it is a Kiddush Hashem, it's a sanctifying God's name. Because when Israel has support from the United States or other countries, it is a Chulul Hashem, it's a desecration of God's name, because then when Israel wins miraculous victories, they say, oh, you only won because you have American aid. Without America, you couldn't have won. But when Israel's alone and wins, that's a real sanctification of God's name. So, Israel should produce her own weapons, should not get any foreign aid. Israel should have trade. Israel can have trade with dozens and dozens of countries and should have even more trade than they have now. And they are capable of having much more trade than they have now. Plenty of trade, plenty of sales, back and forth of goods and services. That Israel can be involved in very effectively because of Jewish brain power and the Jewish ability to produce incredible technology, mind-blowing technology. So Israel should have plenty of trade and plenty of good business deals and plenty of other deals to keep the country prosperous and to be able to produce their own weapons. Israel can do that and should do that and should do it on a much greater scale. Trade, yes. Mutually beneficial relations between countries, yes, absolutely. Israel, for example, could be selling now billions of dollars in weapons to India, just to India. But the United States vetoes Israeli arms sales to foreign countries because that's one of the conditions of the so-called foreign aid that Israel gets, that the United States, because of the so-called foreign aid, the United States has the power to veto Israeli arms deals and other Israeli technology agreements. If Israel weren't getting the foreign aid, Israel could do what she wants. Israel would be able to sell billions of dollars of weapons to India in their fight against Muslim Nazi Pakistan, which is something Israel should be selling weapons to India. And that's just one out of dozens of countries that want very much Israeli trade, but it's being blocked by so-called foreign aid, by this insane AIPAC obsession. Without America, we can't survive for 5 minutes. Oh, we gotta have America. Insane. This is cowardice. It's the ultimate ghetto mentality, the galut mentality of Jews who will never understand what it is to be a sovereign Jewish nation the way God wants us to be. We've got to get rid of AIPAC and all of these other self-hating Jewish traders and all the Jewish establishment leaders that want us eternally dependent on our enemies. We got to get rid of those leaders. We have to have leaders like J.T.F., like this organization here, and like the Hilltop Youth in Israel, and like Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut Party in Israel. Those are the people who should be our leaders. Then Israel will prosper and be stronger and better and more Jewish, and will set an example for the world, will be a light unto the nations and a holy nation, a nation of priests, which is what the Bible commands the Jews to be, which is the destiny of the Jewish people, which is a prerequisite to redemption for the whole world, for all of humanity. It's the Jews that will bring redemption to all of humanity. It's the Jews that will set an example for righteous Gentiles in every country, for nations all over the world. But that can't happen if the Jews are going to be slaves and like drug addicts dependent on the next fix from the United States. That can never happen. Israel doesn't have to have that. It's bad for Israel and it has to stop. But nobody advocates stopping it except for this organization. And in Israel, only Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut Party advocated. And the Hilltop Youth, the heroic Hilltop Youth. Here's what you can do. You want an Israel that's independent and proud and Jewish and standing up for what's right. Jews and righteous Gentiles. Is that the Israel that you want? You want an end. You want an end to this cowering that's completely unnecessary and insane, and dependence that's unnecessary and insane. Do you want an end to that? Okay. Then you have to help the heroic Hilltop Youth to prevent the creation of a Palestinian terrorist state, which would be suicide for Israel. 100% of J.T.F's budget, of the budget of this organization, goes to the heroic Hilltop Youth. Here's how you help. You go to our Hebrew main page, which is hayamin.org. And on our Hebrew main page, there's a donate button in English on top. You click on the donate button in English on top, and you can, in several minutes, easily and conveniently donate. You can make recurring monthly donations or one-time donations or both. That's if you want to donate online. If you want to do it to the regular mail, you just send checks and money orders made out to J.T.F. and you send it to J.T.F. P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. And yes, you should definitely leave J.T.F. in your will. That's the best thing you could do in your will. You're leaving this a better world you're leaving this a better world when you leave money in your will for J.T.F. because that money will go 100% of that money goes to the heroic hilltop youth, the best cause that you could be supporting in our generation. That's the ultimate example of Jewish independence and of Jewish pride and of the Jews that are acting the way the Bible and the way God in the Bible commands the Jews to act. The hilltop youth, they are the example in our generation. And so we have the anti-Semites, as we have in every generation. And we have the Jews that'll cower before them and the Jewish anti-Semites that will join with them. All of the things that we see in every generation, we're seeing this occur again. And with the murder of Charlie Kirk, again, this happened. Again, they blaming the Jews. By the way, they blamed the Jews for assassinating President Kennedy. Just every single, they blame him for assassinating Bobby Kennedy, Senator Bobby Kennedy, in 1968, who was running for president. President John F. Kennedy's brother, Bobby Kennedy, was running for president in 1968. He was assassinated by a PLO terrorist, Sirhan Sirhan, by the PLO Nazi terrorists, the Muslim Nazi terrorists that are committed to the annihilation of Israel. You know why they assassinated Bobby Kennedy? Because he was making speeches that the PLO considered to be pro-Israel. By the way, Kennedys are not really pro-Israel, fake. But the Arabs thought they were, and the Arab terrorists assassinated him. In other words, the enemies of Israel assassinated him to hurt Israel, and yet the anti-Semites blamed the Mossad and blamed the Jews for that assassination as well. They blame them for everything that goes wrong. Everything that goes wrong. Anything that they don't like, they'll blame the Jews for. Well, in the end, we'll see. Look, either I'm right or they're right. If I'm right, they're in a lot of trouble on the day of judgment. And I think history proves clearly, without any doubt, that I'm right. Let's work to make this a better world. Let's work to stand up for truth and justice and righteousness. Let's stand for the truth and do so unapologetically. For J.T.F. until next week, this is Chaim Ben Pesach. Shalom.